Hi there, this is Danger Canadian Content Productions, live from Factory Gastropub and the Danforth. I'm the Moose, and today we're talking to Murray Foster. Welcome.
Thank you.
Varied would be the way that I'd start to describe your career, really.
I think so.
And lots and lots of longevity through that as well. So just to get, if I skip, I won't skip over too many of these, but Moxy Fruvous for 10 years, and then into Great Big Sea as well for 10 years. Cocksure Lads, which must be coming up for 10 years in its own right, it sounds like. So
Cocksure Lads, the first Cocksure Lads song was written in 1989, so it's coming up on 30 years.
Oh my God! Right, okay.
But as a sort of an active project where there's like something to sell and something actually recorded, probably 9 years or something.
Right, okay. So you're well on the way then.
Absolutely,
yeah. And then I've got it down here, the Leicesters.
The Leicesters.
Is that still ongoing?
I have a rehearsal
project?
tonight in about an hour.
Do you? Oh, okay, fine, fair enough.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then on top of that, because that's obviously not enough, then the Cocksure Lads movie.
Yes.
That you wrote, I understand.
Yes.
You wrote,
directed that as well,
and directed that as well. So you've got a filmmaker in the house. There's no pressure on us this evening doing this, obviously, you know. And then on top of that, Toronto Music City as well. Is that have I got that right in terms of as a ongoing project?
Yeah, Toronto Music City ended about 6 months ago, something like that. It was. I guess we're starting to start at the end. The story really is I joined the Toronto Music Advisory Council about 4 years ago.
Yep.
So that's a council that was put together 4 years ago to advise the city of Toronto on music stuff. You know, so the city basically said we need, like, music is a huge part of Toronto, but we don't know what we're doing, and so let's put together 30 sort of insiders and musicians and get some advice about what to do about music. And so I was on that I was part of the founding of that. And through those discussions, I sort of met another guy in the council, this guy Andreas, who's a lawyer, and we had this idea of building affordable housing for musicians, which is desperately needed in Toronto. Desperately needed for everybody, but especially musicians. And so for about a year there, we partnered with Daniels, and at one point we had $16 million committed from the city. Wow. We had Daniels on board, and the city was in for $16 million. Then the money kind of evaporated, and the project kind of went away.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it any less necessary, does it?
No.
That's the point.
No.
You know, Toronto's suffered a little bit from that point of view in terms of not only venues, but keeping musicians in Toronto.
Well, Toronto's a city in enormous flux right now. I mean, there's been, it's exploding in terms of real estate. It's exploding in terms of culture, in terms of like food, in terms of the arts. And because of that, it's pushing out a lot of sort of lower income, marginal, and artist types.
Yep.
So, and I think there is money coming from the feds. Like, I think that has reached sort of the national radar, and there will be money coming, which will sort of improve it. But right now, it's still sort of a crisis. I mean, I have people who are looking for apartments, and they're like, it's just bonkers. You know, the listings come up, and 5 minutes later, they vanish because the person says, I had to take this off because I was inundated with response, to a $1,900 apartment on DuPont, and so it's a real crisis. And musicians are getting pushed out of the city, right? They're moving to Guelph, they're moving to Hamilton. And so it's a crisis for the city as well. It's not just a personal crisis.
And part of the problem is, I think, if I'm right in thinking, Toronto it recognises music as being absolutely critical to it, but it doesn't measure it. It can't measure it in that way that makes it tangible, if you get my drift. Everything should be measured, and I don't think there's a way of measuring the actual, unless you tell me I'm wrong, the actual value of that of music to Toronto.
That's absolutely part of it. I mean, for the longest time, no governments really thought about supporting music or supporting the arts to a certain extent because it was doing fine, right? It didn't need sort of special attention. Now that musicians are leaving Toronto, it sort of needs that special attention in a way it never did before. And because of that, in these meetings that I'm party to, politicians are looking for ways to quantify it. Like, what's the actual impact? And how can we do quantifiable things to help it? And that includes tax reform, it includes noise bylaws, stuff like that, loading bylaws at the Danforth Music Hall, sort of next door.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's sort of going, okay, we know this problem exists, but how do we fix this problem?
Right.
what because there isn't really a template for assisting music on a governmental level.
And communication forms part of that as well, simply because we've seen various groups in various areas. They're not all linked into the same to the same solution piece. And so I'd say that communication is critical from that point of view, and getting it down to absolutely everyone.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and on Toronto Music Advisory Council, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get our message out. Just because there are a few articles about this thing being founded, this Toronto Music Advisory Council, and we were suddenly sort of inundated with like requests to do stuff, and also like these griping kind of emails and tweets and stuff like, why aren't they fixing these problems? And we didn't have a megaphone to respond, but the real answer is we're an advisory council. We have no power. All we do is tell the city some ideas, and hopefully they do it. And yet we became this lightning rod for why aren't they fixing the music scene?
Yeah, and blame travels faster than anything else, doesn't it? Really, at the end of the day, that's the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's nothing. What do I say? What's faster than the sound of light? I think people complaining is
right.
is exactly the way that goes. And I get that but it also represents a level of frustration there as well, and that that's valid all the way through.
Yeah.
So of all these, thank you for that. But of all the these parts you're working on, how many of them and you work on more than that, though, don't you? You're part of a songwriting piece.
Yeah, I run the
Toronto
Songwriting School.
Yeah.
Founded that a few years ago. Yeah.
So other than that, you've got nothing whatsoever to do every day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I teach at Seneca. I teach songwriting at Seneca as well. What's actually taking up most of my time these days is not even on that list.
Right. I was going to
say.
Which
is writing a Cochelad's musical. So through did the movie, wrote it, directed it. It came out a couple of years ago. And then through sort of 2 degrees of separation, we got on the radar of Sheridan College in Oakville.
Right.
And they run an incubator for new musicals, and so we were accepted into that about a year ago.
Wow.
And so in September of this year, we did a 5-week workshop there and sort of presented the first act of this new musical. And so, for 5 hours today, I was writing Act 2 of this musical. So we're doing another workshop in April, and then a full production at Sheridan in next January, a year from now.
Right.
And then we'll sort of go off into the wide world.
Well, I think that you've answered what you're going to be doing next already.
That's right. That's the future.
In the great, but the past is your future as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
From that point of view. You're still. I'm right in thinking that the Cockshaw lads will still be performing as well. On the
we
back
do a
of
few
that.
gigs.
Yeah.
I mean, we have one coming up next month. It's never been a real band. It's a fictitious '60s British band. So the fact that we actually played gigs was kind of extraordinary and funny to us. And the fact that we still do gigs is kind of odd, that a fictitious band would do gigs.
From that point, does making, obviously you're making music through musicals and we'll see that come at some point in the future. But what about releasing material? What recording material? Are you still writing and recording your own material as well, or
still writing?
How do you fit all of that in with everything else? Is what I'm trying to get to.
I still write. I've never released a solo record, and that's sort of on my radar.
Right.
As soon as I find some time, I have a home studio, so I can.
I
have the means to do that. But and I teach a lot of people who have various levels of ambition and aspiration in terms of being a professional musician, and I struggle with what to say to them in terms of how to do it, because it's really the rug has been pulled out from underneath the music industry by starting with Napster and through Spotify and all that stuff. So much money has gone out of that industry that and labels don't have A&R departments anymore, right?
No.
So people are like, what should I do? What's the pathway? And I'm like, well, what I should say is there's no pathway, because that's 96% of the truth.
Yeah.
The pathway that there is YouTube. So what Drake and Bieber and The Weeknd and Alicia Cara and Shawn Mendes have in common, these Canadian superstars, international superstars, is they were all YouTube stars first.
Right.
And so YouTube has become this sort of back door to the American music industry in a way that Canadians never had access to before.
Well, that's interesting, because we looked at Spotify. Spotify isn't perfect by any means, and I know there's lots wrong. We could talk all night about what's right and more particularly what's wrong with that particular part. But what Spotify's allowing us to do is actually reach a broader audience than we would have done otherwise.
Yeah.
And from our point of view, and as I say, it's not perfect, and we understand that. We took the best of the best albums that we saw last year, 2 tracks from each, and put them out through Spotify as a playlist. Again, nothing. That's not. It's not the pinnacle of it all, but it's getting to new audiences, and that in its own way, we think there's a way of being able to do that a little bit. But that is still reliant then on people actually dialing in, and seeing that at the same time. The point you make about YouTube is it's limited. There's no boundaries for it.
Absolutely.
In terms of countries,
it's much more democratic. In many ways, it's great for the consumer, and in many ways, it's great for the artist. The problem is the artist isn't making any of that money.
No.
And so you can have, I did the rough math about 6 months ago that, to afford a basement apartment in Toronto, and this is without food or clothing or anything else, you would need 90 million streams a month. So, by the time you get 90 million streams a month, you're a megastar. And yet the money you're getting from, and you can monetize that in other ways.
Yeah.
The money you're actually getting from Spotify is enough to probably not quite pay your rent.
Right.
So that's the disconnect. It's become the major platform for disseminating music in a great, democratic, convenient way that consumers love. It's just the model is flawed in that money is ending up in other pockets. These corporations that are really smart and really savvy saw this as an opportunity to kind of like hoover up all of that income, and that's what's happened. Yeah, and the musician has no power in that.
We follow a guy called Tom Robinson in London. Was with Tom Robinson Band, and it does his own solo stuff. Fantastic performer.
Tom Robinson. Yeah.
He really is a marvelous human being. And one of the things he did was when iTunes came out, he went, actually, I'm just going to put it all on my site for free. I might as well, because it means nothing. The number of hits I'm getting doesn't really equate with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it is a changing world, and it's changing faster, sadly, than many of us can actually keep up with from that point of view. So the vinyl piece is coming back. That's great. I'm a big I like physicality.
Yeah.
All right. I love the vinyl. I like CDs.
Yeah.
Perhaps I'm old school, but it's the tangible.
I think a lot of people like that.
And I think I can almost see there being a bit of, as well as vinyl coming back, not necessarily. Well, it might be CDs, but coming back in a different way and actually saying, well, okay, fine, this is now the package.
Yeah.
We don't want to use, and I think Taylor Swift did this before. Don't want to use Spotify.
Yeah.
Want it to come out. Adele managed her entire new release.
Yeah.
Herself, or with her record company.
Yeah.
And did very nicely, thank you.
Yeah,
but you've got to be that size to be able to have that clout to be able to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
So we're going to be. I'm also cognizant of time here a little bit, so we're going to move on into some of the speed round of doom as well. Okay. So this is first answers. No, there's no bad answer. You can pass.
There are bad answers. Come on.
Well, they can be.
Let's not kid ourselves.
They can be.
There are terrible answers.
There are terrible answers. But some of them, well, that's up to you whether you
relatively terrible.
Yeah. So we start with something relatively tame then. Okay. So if there was a pizza that described your personality, what pizza would describe you? If you had to pick one out and go, that's my pizza, what's it going to be?
I guess Hawaiian. Only because I love Hawaiian pizza. It's the first thing that came to mind. But I think I'm generally pretty low key, like a Hawaiian pizza, but with these dashes of pineapple.
Okay.
Something that pops.
Pineapple has been something that's cropped up a lot actually in these.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
in fact, the inventor of pineapple died a week after.
Yes,
of
that's
right. The week after we did one of the things. It's just bizarre. That was Escott Royals, and I love those guys. This is a bit bizarre, but there's a space program to Mars. It may be one way. If you had to choose which musical celebrity was going to be on that one, who are we sending to Mars? Van Morrison, Johnny Rotten, Kanye West, Bob Dylan, or Sting?
Is this as musical ambassador, or is it my companion for
No. You're sending them to Mars. They may or may not be coming back. Put it that way. So,
like someone I don't like because I don't want them to come back.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, let me hear the list again.
Van Morrison, Johnny Rotten, Kanye West, Bob Dylan, Sting.
Wow, trip to Mars. This is I'm gonna be like a hater now.
But that's the whole point of the issue.
I guess so. Yeah,
there you go.
Oh man, this is terrible. I would say, oh my god, maybe I'll send Johnny Rotten.
Send Johnny Rotten. Again, you're not alone. in that.
Yeah,
So just so you know,
yeah.
it's not a hater
and he's
thing.
not a bad guy.
No. It's just
send somebody.
Yep, you got to send somebody. And there's a story about that. I'll tell you about that later. Maple syrup, overpriced or overrated?
Neither.
Excellent. That's okay. Good. In a fight, who would win? A silverback gorilla or 100 midgets with knives?
Well, the knives are the deal breaker.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Knives are the deal breaker.
8 midgets with knives would win.
Okay. Yeah. That's okay. That's fair enough. Penguins or scorpions?
Penguins.
Okay.
I won't even ask.
No.
Next question.
No. How would you describe yourself? High maintenance, low maintenance, or, and this is the kicker, high maintenance but think you're low maintenance?
That's great. I'm low maintenance.
Low maintenance.
In fact, one of the road manager for Great Big Sea called me no maintenance. Because if it's high maintenance, you're like, dude, you're like no maintenance. He was like, if like you could walk on stage and instead of a bass, I passed you a bass. You would just be, oh well, and you'd play the bass.
You play the bass, yeah. No, that works. I love that. Absolutely. Bit of a MacGyverism going on in there as well.
Yeah.
And finally, which vegetable best describes Toronto? We know it's called Hogtown, but there's got to be some veg with the hog. So which one's it going to be?
Yeah. Let's say vegetable. Blanking on vegetables now. Maybe the artichoke.
Artichoke.
Yeah, with like hidden hearts, you know.
Oh, yeah, I like that. That's,
several hidden hearts. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a carrot and a turnip at one point, but I think that was just a CN tower.
That's panic. That's
exactly, or whatever. Here it goes. Okay. Well, with that then, that's going to bring us to a close. First of all, many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Details of all your details will be in the credits as we go through. Many thanks to George and Factory Girl for putting up with us once again. Thank you to Yestin for filming, and subscribe to the YouTube link. Until next time, good night.
Good night.
1, 2, 3. You're gonna stay cocksure like you always were, standing up to all your mummies and dads. You give as good as you get, and no one's beaten you yet, cause you're a cockney cocksure lad. Happy times. I'll tap in sand and tinkle for the cocksure lad. I'll trickly tartan the knack. This steady boy in a jacket is showing off his packet, and there goes almost when he turns his back. Ooh. There goes Pretty Polly with the cocksure lad. She's running her hands through his hair. All the friends said he was dickers, then he bought a boots and knickers. Now it's out and fish and chips for the yard. You gotta stay cocksure like you always were.